Before we begin, take a moment and subscribe, because what you're about to hear is more than a story about a coin. It's a journey into history, memory, and the kind of hidden treasure that speaks directly to men who've lived, worked, and witnessed decades of change. Men who know value not just by price, but by experience. If you're between 55 and 65, this moment is designed for you because it connects your past to something truly remarkable. Imagine holding a piece of your own lifetime in the palm of your hand. A small object of metal, so simple at first glance, yet so rich in story and strength that it becomes something far more powerful than money. That is the experience of discovering the South Africa 1 Rand coin from 1968. This is not just a coin. It is a quiet survivor of a country's turning point, a witness to everyday life, and a reminder of what time can do to even the smallest things. Think back to the late 60s. The world was shifting. Countries were redefining themselves. New ideas were challenging the old, and people everywhere were living through some of the most transformative years of the century. And in the middle of all that change, the South African Mint released the 1 Rand of 1968. To many, it was just money, something you'd get as change at the shop or drop into your pocket without thinking twice. Yet today, that same coin has become one of the most surprising treasures collectors are hunting for. If you ever held one of these coins, you might remember the familiar face of Jan van Riebeeck on one side, standing tall in history. His portrait was crisp, confident, and deeply rooted in the identity of the country at that time. Turn it over, and the springbok antelope leaping in perfect motion captured the spirit of South Africa. Nimble, resilient, always pressing forward. Every curve of the engraving, every polished surface, every line of detail was crafted with intention. Nothing about it was rushed. Nothing was careless. Men of your generation remember when even small things were built to last. Tools were made to be passed down, not thrown away. Cars were heavy, strong, full of steel. And coins, real coins, had weight, texture, and presence. The 1968 Rand was one of those pieces. It felt solid between your fingers. The ring of it against a counter had a sharpness you can't forget. It was the sound of work, trade, and everyday living. But while most people spent theirs, some of these coins went untouched. A few were put aside, collected, saved, hidden in drawers, or sealed in boxes. And over time, they became rarer and rarer. Not because they were intentionally made rare, but because time slowly erased them from circulation. The ones that survived in exceptional, almost untouched condition became something very special. Every collector knows that rarity is only part of the equation. What gives an object real power is when it blends rarity with memory. When someone can look at it and say, "I remember when this was new. I remember that era. I lived it." That connection is priceless. It turns a coin into a story you can hold. Think of how many hands a circulated coin passes through. Workers, farmers, merchants, travelers, young men starting their lives, and older men who'd lived through wars and rebuilding. A single coin might have witnessed thousands of moments, small, ordinary, yet meaningful. It might have carried the last cent a man used to buy supplies, or the first coin a kid ever saved. And when you look at one today, especially one preserved in exceptional condition, it carries all those moments silently within it. Collectors aren't just buying metal. They're buying time. They're buying the feeling of a world that once was. They're buying the craftsmanship of a mint that took pride in every detail. And for many who grew up with this coin in their pocket, seeing it again is like opening an old photograph album where the images never fade. Picture yourself holding one now. The coolness of the metal, the clarity of the engraving, the sense that you're touching a piece of your own history. Objects like this don't just sit in a collection. They spark conversations. They pass through generations. They become the kind of thing a grandfather shows his grandson while telling him how times were different, how things used to be built to last, how money once had weight and meaning. And here's the fascinating part. While many people ignored these coins or took them for granted, collectors worldwide have rediscovered them with excitement. The market has grown sharply, especially for the rarest surviving examples, those untouched, uncirculated pieces that still look almost exactly as they did the day they left the mint in 1968. These are the coins that make professionals lean forward and say, "Now this is something special." You might ask, what makes this coin so desirable today? It's the perfect combination of historical importance, scarcity, age, and condition. Coins from transitional periods often gain value. Coins that resonate with a generation become sought after. And coins that survive decades without a scratch become legendary. For someone who appreciates history, craftsmanship, and the value of things that last, this coin is more than an object. It is a reminder that the world you lived through, your challenges, your victories, your hard work, still holds value. It proves that the simplest things can become extraordinary when time elevates them. So, if you've enjoyed this journey into a piece of the past and the surprising power it carries today, make sure you subscribe. I share stories like this because history deserves to be remembered, and the treasures of the past deserve to be understood before they vanish into private collections forever. Before we begin, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because here, every story we tell brings history, heritage, and hidden treasures right to your screen. You never know which coin lying quietly in your drawer could change the way you see the past, and maybe even its worth today. Now, imagine this. It's the year 1970. South Africa is a country standing on the edge of great change, a land divided by politics, but rich with beauty, culture, and craftsmanship. That was the year a small but powerful symbol of pride rolled out of the South African mint. A coin so simple at first glance, yet so deeply rooted in the country's story that it still commands attention half a century later. I'm talking about the 1 Rand coin of 1970, bearing the solemn and noble words Soli Deo Gloria. Glory to God alone. To most people, it's just a piece of silver-colored metal. But to the collector who understands its story, it's a reflection of history, of artistry, and of values that shaped a nation. Let's take a closer look. The obverse side, that's the front, carries a design that immediately captures your eye. A proud image of Jan van Riebeeck, often regarded as a founding figure in South African history. His face, detailed and dignified, was used for years on South African coins, but the 1970 minting carried something special. The craftsmanship had improved, the finish was refined, and each detail, from the curve of the collar to the expression in his eyes, stood out with remarkable clarity. Around him, the words South Africa and Sud Africa appear, marking both the English and Afrikaans heritage of the country at the time. It's a coin that speaks two languages, but carries one story, a story of a nation's complex identity. Now flip it over, and the reverse tells its own tale. The springbok, light and graceful, leaps across the surface, an image that's become a symbol of South African endurance and spirit. Underneath, the denomination, 1 Rand. Above it, those Latin words that give the coin its soul, Soli Deo Gloria. The motto wasn't just a decoration. It was a message, a quiet reminder of humility, gratitude, and faith. In an era when the world seemed to be shifting rapidly, those words grounded the design in something timeless. For many who lived through that period, this coin brings back memories. The crisp sound of change in the pocket, the feel of cool metal in the palm, the way currency connected everyone, from the man buying his morning paper to the farmer selling his produce. The 1 Rand wasn't just money, it was part of daily life. And yet, few realized that decades later, this very coin would become a cherished piece of numismatic history. Collectors today don't just see a coin, they see craftsmanship and condition. The 1971 Rand was struck primarily in nickel, though a small number were minted in silver for proof sets. Those proof coins, with their mirror-like finish and pristine detail, are where the real value hides. The quality of the strike, the shine of the metal, the absence of scratches or marks. All these small details can make the difference between a few dollars and a fortune. But what makes this particular year so fascinating isn't only the design or the limited proof runs. It's the historical context. 1970 was a time when South Africa's coinage was shifting, moving away from silver to base metals, reflecting changes in both economy and policy. So those early examples that still carried the older purity or were struck to proof standards became instant rarities in the years that followed. And as collectors worldwide began to appreciate the craftsmanship of South African minting, these coins found their way into collections in Europe, Australia, and the United States. There's another layer to this story, the emotional one. Many collectors who seek the 1971 Rand aren't just after metal, they're after memory. They remember a father's coin jar or a grandfather's desk drawer filled with old currency from a time long gone. When they hold that coin again, it isn't just about numismatic value. It's about reliving a piece of their youth, their heritage, their connection to the past. That's what gives these coins a value beyond price tags and auction listings. That's what makes them personal. And yet, let's talk about the reality of its worth today. Over the years, the market for South African coins has grown quietly but steadily. The Krugerrand may steal the headlines, but the One Rand series, especially those from the late 1960s and early 1970s, has developed a dedicated following. When a coin is rare, beautifully preserved, and carries the powerful symbolism that Soli Deo Gloria brings, collectors are willing to pay more than you might expect. Condition is key. A circulated coin, one that's seen pockets, tills, and years of handling, might fetch a modest price, enough to make you smile. But a proof coin, sealed and untouched, gleaming as though it left the mint yesterday, that's where the magic happens. Those are the pieces that go under the hammer at collector auctions and surprise even seasoned bidders. So, let's say you're holding one in your hand, a 1971 Rand coin, crisp, clean, untouched. You tilt it under the light and see the springbok leap in perfect detail. You read those words again, Soli Deo Gloria, and you realize this is not just metal. It's a message cast in nickel and time. You begin to wonder, what could something like this be worth today? Well, here's where the story meets its reward. In recent evaluations and collector sales, a genuine 1970 South Africa 1 Rand coin, in pristine proof condition, preserved with care and kept free from the touch of time, has reached an estimated value of around $3,300. Yes, you heard that right. A single coin, once worth a single Rand, now valued at over $3,000. And that's the beauty of numismatics. What once jingled in a pocket can, with patience and preservation, turn into a prized treasure. It's not just about money. It's about the story behind the metal, the journey from mint to memory, and the craftsmanship that outlasts generations. So, if you happen to have a 1 Rand coin from 1970 lying around, maybe in a drawer, maybe in an old box of keepsakes, take another look. History might just be sitting quietly in your hand, waiting for its moment to shine again. But if you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe for more. Because every coin tells a story, and here, we bring those stories to life, one treasure at a time.